Hello, dear students. Today we will be looking at the topic deflection torque of moving iron instruments, and we'll also look at or we'll also go through uh, extension of range of PMMC instruments while using as a ammeter and a voltmeter. Now you can represent your moving iron instrument something like this. The instrument coil has a resistance, and you can associate an inductance with this particular coil. So as you know, uh, the construction is something like you have a cylinder and your coil is wound over it, okay, of this manner. So obviously, while it is carrying the current, you can associate some inductance with it, and this current can be AC or DC. So while it is carrying alternating current, the inductance element comes into picture. So Rm is a fixed coil resistance, so we have one fixed coil only, and this fixed coil carries the current, and Lm is a fixed coil inductance. Now this inductance can be defined as or can be equated to N phi by I, where N is the number of turns, I is the current that is carried by the coil, and phi is the flux that is produced by the particular current. So from that you can write Li is equal to N phi. Now the EMF that is induced in this particular coil, induced EMF, the general equation for this is N phi, you take the derivative d by dt of N phi. So you substitute for N phi as L into I, and you will get this as d by dt of Li. So that is equivalent to L into dA by dt plus I into dL by dt. Why do you have this two terms coming? You have one term here and the other term here. This is because here both inductance as well as the current are variables. Okay, so your inductance also varies, the current also varies. So inductance will be varying with respect to time, depending on the current that is flowing, depending on the flux that is produced. Your inductance will be varying depending on the nature of flux current that is flowing, and also the current itself is varying with respect to time. So you have two terms coming. Generally we consider only one term, L into dA by dt, and you assume that your inductance is constant. So here inductance is not constant, it will be varying. It is again varying with respect to your deflection also. We'll see that later. Okay, now the electrical energy supplied to this particular instrument is given by E into I dt for a time dt. Okay, so current into voltage into the time dt. So that will be Li di. So you are multiplying this equation with I dt. So you'll have Li di plus I squared dl. So dt term gets cancelled. So this is the electrical energy supplied, which is equated to equation number 1. Now during this process, while electrical energy is supplied, initially assume that your current I is flowing, and you have now a current I plus di flowing. That is, the current is changed from I to I plus di. So the stored energy in this particular coil also changes from I squared, half I squared L, or half Li squared to half L plus dl into I plus di the whole square. That is, inductance also varies. It varies from L to L plus dl. So you'll have slight variation in inductance because your current is varying. Once the current is varying, flux varies. So once the flux varies, your inductance also varies. So your new inductance is L plus dl. So L plus dl the whole, L plus dl is here, and I plus di the whole square. So your stored energy changes like this. So the change in stored energy is half I plus di the whole square into L plus dl minus half I squared L or Li squared. So difference between these two terms. So you are neglecting the higher order terms, and you will be getting this as your simplified equation, half I squared dl plus ILTA. So you can simplify it and you can neglect the higher order terms. You will be getting equation number 2 as the change in stored energy. Now change in potential energy or the work done by the spring is given by Td into d theta. So while your current is flowing, your spring will be operating. So you'll have some energy stored in the spring, because your spring will be contracting and compressing, and this some energy will be stored in the spring. So equivalent energy can be given by deflecting torque into the change in deflection or the angle by which the spring is deflected. So that is given by Td into d theta. This is the mechanical work done by the spring. Now from the principle of conservation of energy, you can write the energy that is supplied will be equal to energy stored in the particular coil plus the work done by the spring. So you are equating everything. So I square dl plus IL into di, which is equal to the energy that is stored in the coil plus the potential energy of the spring or the work done by the spring. So that will be you can simplify it something like this. So you'll have Td equal to I squared half I squared dl by d theta. Okay, so you'll end up at this equation, Td equal to half I squared dl by d theta. So other terms will be cancelled out. So you'll have this term left. So this two terms will be cancelling out, and you'll have these two terms simplified in this form. So while you are using a spring control, the control torque can be given by Tc equal to Kc into theta, where Kc is a spring constant and theta is the angle by which the spring is deflected. And while you are thinking about equilibrium, or the point at which your deflection torque balances your control torque, you will have an equilibrium, and you can equate like Kc theta equal to half I squared dl by d theta. So you will have theta is equal to half I squared dl by d theta divided by Kc. So here you can get a relationship, or you can see a relationship between theta and the current. So you can say that your theta can be proportional to I squared, assuming that dl by d theta is constant. Okay, if you assume that your dl by d theta is constant, you can say that your theta is proportional to I square. But in actual case, or in practical instance, dl by d theta is not constant, and it is generally, or this variation in this value dl by d theta is proportional to the angle at which your pointer is deflected, or angle to which your deflection is occurring, or is proportional to the theta. Now if your dl by d theta is not constant, you cannot say that your theta is directly proportional to I square. And in practical instance, what we do is that we try to make this dl by d theta constant by designing or choosing dimensions and shape and the position of the vanes. You have iron vanes. Those iron vanes are responsible for this entire process. So the iron vanes will be chosen in such a way that the dimensions, the shape, the position of the iron vanes are adjusted in order to make this dl by d theta to be constant in the maximum range possible. So you'll have you can assume that dl by d theta is constant over majority of the range, and you can say that your theta is proportional to I squared. So once your theta is proportional to I squared, what happens? You'll have a non-linear relationship. Okay, that is, once your current is varying, your theta is proportional to square of the current. Okay, so when you measure 1 ampere, the theta will be square of that, proportional to square of that. Or when you measure 2 ampere, it will be square of 2, that is proportional to 4. So you'll have a non-linear relationship between. So you can say that your scale of the instrument is not uniform. You don't have a linear relationship like this. You had this relationship in PMMC instrument where theta was proportional to current, but here you have a non-linear relationship. And again, for a MI instrument, this is an MI instrument, you can see that your scale is cramped here. So here you don't have a linear range. Okay, so here your range is not linear. That is, it is cramped somewhere, somewhat cramped here. So you can see that here you have a linear scale from 10 to this is 15. For from 10 to 15 it is having this much space available. but from 0 to 5 this is 5. From 0 to 5 you have only this much space available, and from 0 to 10 5 to 10 you have this much space available. Okay, so from 0 to 10 this is somewhat cramped. This is due to the relationship between theta and current. Okay, so you will have some sort of this shape. So in this region, so this is current and this is theta. So your current, once the current varies, your theta is proportional to square of the current. Okay, so here you can say that your this range you have a non-linear relationship, and after some time you will have somewhat a linear relationship for maximum region. So again, towards the end of this section, end of the scale, you have again cramped region. So this is 25, and then you have 25 and 30 coming close to each other. Now you have a somewhat linear range from this to this. So this is somewhere equal to 80 degrees. So around 80 degrees you will have a linear scale, and you will have rest of the region as non-linear. So always we try to choose instruments so that your measurement will be in this linear scale, because it will be difficult to, suppose you are trying to measure 2 ampere with this particular meter. Okay, so once you're measuring 2 amperes, it will be somewhere between 0 and 5, but you don't cannot measure it accurately. So you have to choose instruments in such a way that your instruments or your measurement will be lying in the linear range. So you have to choose instruments wisely. Now why do you have this cramping at the end of this particular scale? And this is due to the fact that your dl by d theta decreases sharply at this region. So your cramping at the initial portion is due to the relationship theta proportional to I squared, and at the end of the scale, this is due to the relationship between theta and dl by d theta. Okay, so your dl by d theta, if you analyze, you can see that dl by d theta is reducing sharply at this region. So you'll have a cramped region towards the end of this. At least you remember these 2 points. That is, your scale will be non-linear, and you will have a cramped region at the beginning and at the end of the scale. At the initial section, it is due to the uh, relationship between theta and current, and towards the end of the scale, it is due to the relationship between theta and the rate of change of inductance with respect to theta, or dl by d theta. So you'll have a non-linear scale. So again, you have to choose a scale in such a way that your measurement will be lying in the linear range. Now you are able to measure currents up to 50 ampere without shunt, because you are having a fixed coil, and here your spring is not carrying any current, so you don't have any constraint of the current that is carried by the spring. So your theta is proportional, and so your fixed coil carries the current, and you can measure up to 50 amperes even without shunt. So again, if you are going for higher currents, you need to provide a shunt. Now while you are measuring AC, you have to consider the inductance of the meter coil as well as the shunt. So this is RM is the meter coil, resistance, and LM is a meter coil inductance, and RSH and LSH are the inductances of the shunt that is used. If you are directly using a resistance also, it might be having some inductive properties since it is carrying the AC or alternating current. So you can associate some sort of inductance LSH with it. Now while you are providing such an arrangement, what you do is that you will try to make the meter independent of frequency. So you take the ratio between the measured current, the current that is flowing through the instrument, and the shunt current, Im by ASH. So when you simplify it, you will be getting this equation, that is RSH by RM into root of this value. Now you can make this particular instrument independent of frequency when you equate these two terms to be same, that is this particular term and this particular term. So frequency independence can be given by equating these two terms. If these two terms are equal, this entire term will be 1. So you'll have this Im by Ish is equal to Rsh by Rm. So, here from this equation you can arrive at this, where omega is your angular frequency, so omega gets cancelled out. So you will have LSH by Rs is equal to Lm by Rm, and this particular relationship is known as time constant of this particular coil. Okay, L by R is gives you the time constant. So if you make your time constant of your meter coil and the shunt to be equal, you can make this particular instrument independent of frequency. So this the concept of time constant will be dealt later in your control system classes. Now try to remember the term time constant. So if you're trying to extend the range of the instrument to measure more currents or ammeter, if you're trying to add shunt to the meter, you have to make the time constant of your shunt to be equal to time constant of the meter coil. So that is the concept that you need to remember. LSS by Rs is equal to Lm by Rm. Sorry. Now if you trying to measure voltages, more voltages or higher voltages, that is you will be using multipliers. So while you are going for multipliers, again you can directly use a resistance which is independent of any inductance, a purely resistive one without any inductance, so that RSC can be added here while you are trying to increase the range of the MI instrument as a voltmeter. Now again the issue is that once you are trying to measure multiple frequencies, if you are using the same instrument for measuring different frequencies, the frequencies will be varying, and the impedance of this particular coil will be varying, because impedance will be depending on the frequency. So in order to make your this particular instrument independent of frequency, and or in order to measure multiple frequencies, what you do is that you will be providing a capacitance in shunt to this particular resistance, so that you can reduce the effect of or neglect the effect of this frequency dependence of this meter inductance. Okay, so the total impedance will be given by total impedance seen by the current Im will be given by Rm plus j omega Lm, this impedance, plus Rc in parallel with 1 by j omega c. Okay, now once you simplify it, you will arrive at this particular equation. So once you arrive at this equation, what you can say that if you are trying to make this impedance independent of frequency, your Lm minus Rsc squared c should be equal to 0. If you are making this complex part to be 0, your meter will be independent of frequency, or Lm minus Rsc squared into c equal to 0, or you can get c is equal to Lm by Rsc squared. Okay, so this is the criteria that you have to meet in order to make your meter independent of frequency once you are using it as a voltmeter by using multipliers. So just keep these two ideas in mind, that is, while you are using MI meter as an ammeter to in order to extend the range, you will be going for time constant concept, that is making the time constant of shunt as well as the meter coil to be equal. And here, while you are using as a voltmeter, you will be using, along with the multiplier resistance, a capacitor in parallel in order to make it independent of frequency, and the value is given by C is equal to Lm by Rc squared.